take all of these little pieces directly from your cutting mat to your sewing machine, and you will sew a short seam from one to the next, creating a chain of pieces. When you have the strips all sewn together, snip each section apart. When you open the piece, you'll notice that you have 3 seams. You want to finger press the center seam so it's going the same direction as all the pieces in the strip. Do not use your iron because this is a bias strip. You don't want to stretch the strip by ironing it. This is where the fun part begins, and I usually don't sew the blocks together until I've had a little design play. You want to match up the light colored strip with the light colored triangle. You'll notice one side of this strip is narrower than the other. It may not look like it matches, but remember you have seam allowance that hasn't been stitched yet. Each block will use one light and one dark narrow strip, one light and one dark triangle to make one block. They'll be 8 inches finished, 8.5 inches with seam allowance. This triangle was cut from a 7.5 inch square. For even greater effect, you can mix and match the narrow strip to a different fabric print, but keep your light and dark values together. It gives you a more scrappy appearance. Place the triangle right side up on the sewing table and position the strip with the right sides together. Remember to leave a little bit extending at the edge, and your seam will begin right at that inside corner. Sew down roughly 1 inch or 1.5 inches and leave your needle down. Reach to the bottom of the strip and get the bottom edge in alignment. Sew all the way through, creating half the block. Okay, once you get those little strips and the big triangles connected, they're going to look like this. The really exciting part about cutting with a sequence like you've done is that the blocks will fit together beautifully, and I want to show you how this works. When you place a dark block on top of a light block, the diamonds will nestle together because the seams are pressed in opposite directions. The center will nestle together and the diamond on the other end. If you've accidentally flipped some of the strips during the cutting process, it will show up in this step. You'll notice that the seams are not going in opposing directions. Just pause, press the seam carefully the opposite direction, and keep sewing. Once the blocks are sewn for your project, I haven't pressed my block yet because the seams may be pressed either towards the darkest value or towards the light value, but it really does depend on how the blocks are sitting in the final quilt layout. Here's a tip, write this down. When I've got all the blocks pieced, I position them on my design wall with the front of the block facing the wall and the seam allowances are facing me. Then I can determine from row to row and block to block whether the seams will go up or down or up. They will always go in the opposite direction as the neighboring block. Now I know this lesson has included a lot of information on cutting, marking your ruler, and sewing the block together, but you can see that it's a step-by-step process, and I promise once you try it, you're going to catch on very quickly. In the beginning, you may need to watch the video more than once, but once you understand, it'll be smooth sailing.